This spin on stage 14 only cost him a few seconds, but that was enough to hand the lead to Loeb. And once in front, Loeb was ruthless. Like on day one, he was quicker on the repeated afternoon stages. At the end of the day, his lead was up to an imposing 21.8 seconds. And Gronholm simply had no answers.
He's always a second round runner, driver. He's not so fast on the first run, but when we repeat, he is going fast. So, okay. But nothing to do for the moment.
On the final morning, everybody was anticipating a Gronholm fight back like the one in Japan. But on the first stage, Sebastian Loeb sent out a clear message, beating Gronholm by 7 seconds and extending the lead to nearly 30.
I remember Japan, and I don't want to finish with 5 seconds with a big pressure. So I said, okay, this morning is like yesterday. Fight and no question.
Loeb could then afford to just guide his Citroën through the remaining kilometres to record WRC victory number 28. Gronholm reduced the margin to just over 20 seconds by the end, but Loeb collected another 10 points in the Drivers' Championship. He now needed to just finish 4th in Turkey to retain his title. Mikko Hirvonen's 6 points for 3rd place means he is now just 2 points behind Danny Sordo. After Finland and Japan, Sordo was in need of a confidence-boosting performance in Cyprus, but things went from bad to worse for the young Spaniard. Day 1 saw him retire with an engine problem. He restarted on day 2, but suffered this roll when he overcut a corner on stage 10. And here he is on Sunday's downtown special stage around the streets of Limassol. He was far too fast into that corner. Sordo was left inconsolable. And Sordo's bad run was helping Ford to close the gap on Kronos Citroën in the Manufacturers' Championship. With 4 events left, they are now just 7 points behind.
Sebastian Loeb had expected to be crowned world champion at the Rally of Turkey. But sensationally, he would not be at the start line. Instead, he was at home in Geneva nursing a broken arm he suffered in a mountain biking accident.
This is a bike who caused me all this trouble. I was just 3 kilometers from here in the forest, and in a downhill I just go past over my bike and fall directly on my arm on a big stone. So when something happens, immediately I think to the championship, to the rally, and okay, so I came home. I knew that something is wrong with my arm, but I didn't know exactly what. So I went to the hospital, and then was a bad surprise to know that it's broken and that it will take some time and that I will miss for sure Turkey.
His replacement in the Citroën team was WRC legend Colin McRae. He may have expected to be the headline act, but on day 1 at least, he was upstaged by the weather. Torrential rain had turned the roads to deep mud and led to the cancellation of 3 of the opening day's stages, amid fears that medical vehicles wouldn't be able to get into the stage in the event of an accident. But on the stages that were run, Marcus Gronholm gave notice that he was going to take maximum advantage of the fact that Sebastian Loeb wasn't here. The Finn looked as assured as anybody possibly could in such conditions to open up a lead approaching 30 seconds. While Colin McRae had a satisfactory first day, running 6th, if you were looking for a comeback story, Petter Solberg was providing that. Although his Subaru was experiencing some traction problems, it seemed to be largely free of the debilitating mechanical issues that had scuppered his assault on the driver's title. He established himself in second. Solberg's speed on the later part of day one even suggested he might be capable of mounting a challenge for first place. But while showing promising signs, there is still some work to be done on the Subaru, and Solberg would have to accept he wasn't quite ready to compete with the likes of Gronholm. Second place for the Norwegian would have still been a great result, but regardless of the talent of the driver or soundness of the car, nothing can be taken for granted in Turkey. On day two, a big rock threw the Subaru offline, and Solberg and co-driver Phil Mills were stuck in a ditch. More disappointment for Solberg, but he could still take some positives from this event. And Colin McRae was being reminded of how tough it is at the top. He may have 25 WRC wins under his belt, but he was still getting used to this car and the setup of the team. Tyre choice was always an issue, and some wrong decisions in this department were holding him back. But he and co-driver Nicky Grist still looked set for a top 8 finish. However, although they were in Loeb and Eleanor's car, they didn't experience the luck of the reigning world champions. A failed alternator forcing them to retire on the very last stage. Despite the awful conditions, there were relatively few retirements, though Jan Kopecky would not be coming back from this off. This made for some intense competition throughout the classification, and many crews would be celebrating come the end of the rally. Kosti Katimäki, Chevy Pons and Chris Atkinson were disputing the middle order of the leaderboard over the last 2 days. By the time they reached the last stage, 4th place was the prize, and it was Chris Atkinson who was in possession. But Pons put in a fantastic run to leapfrog both Atkinson and Katimäki to take 4th. A sweet moment for the Spaniard, who's experienced a poor run of results since being replaced as the nominated manufacturer's scorer in the Kronos Citroën team by Danny Sordo. And with Katimäki also getting the better of Atkinson to finish 5th, he and the Stobart VK Ford team could celebrate their best result to date. Petter Solberg's retirement saw Mikko Hirvonen inherit 2nd, which would equal his best ever finish. He held off a spirited challenge from Henning Solberg. But the Peugeot man would end up celebrating a first ever podium finish. Brake failure meant it was a nervous run through the final stage. But at last, he could enjoy his moment.
No brakes at all.
Here we go, the biggest smile in Turkey.
Yes! we broke a brake pipe, so we have to fix it, so we nearly reached the end, and now we are on the podium for the first time. Oh, I was nervous. Oh.
But the biggest party would be in the Ford camp. With Hirvonen already across the finish line, it was just left for Gronholm to get home to give the team their first 1-2 since Mexico 2004. Team boss Malcolm Wilson literally jumping for joy. This also meant that with the uncertainty over when Loeb would return, Gronholm had maintained his chance of lifting the driver's title. But he still had a mountain to climb if he was to achieve that. The gap was still 25 points. Mikko Hirvonen moved into 3rd ahead of Danny Sordo. And to neatly round off a great weekend for Ford, they also took over leadership in the Manufacturers' Championship.
As expected, Sebastian Loeb was still absent as the WRC made the journey to the other side of the world for Rally Australia. So Marcus Gronholm set out on the opening leg knowing that he needed a win or at very least a podium to keep his championship hopes alive.
Vasen hidas. Ja vasen eri sisältä. pois. 5 ja vasen eri, älä. Oikein nopea sumppu, kivi sisällä 7, vasen hidas, kirraa. Oi.
But just a few kilometres into the first proper stage, it looked to be all over. The 11 minutes this off cost him looked to have handed Loeb the driver's title.
Has this handed the championship to Sebastian Loeb, or can you fight back and get near the podium? You need third, perhaps.
Yeah, I think it's difficult, but I think he deserves it because he was leading so comfortable. So, okay, now, okay, stupid mistake from me.
Grönholm's demotion left the Subarus of Petter Solberg and Chris Atkinson out in front, and it was the Australian who was the leader in front of his home crowd. But Atkinson's dream of delivering a home victory in what was the last time this event was to be held in Western Australia would last only a few stages. He went off and his Subaru caught fire.
Just sit here, take your helmet off. Leave it on. Don't get too close to him if it ignites.
And the news got no better for Subaru, as it was not Petter Solberg who inherited the lead, but Ford's Mikko Hirvonen, who was now leading his team's challenge to enhance their position at the top of the standings in the Manufacturers' Championship. But Solberg was still enjoying a revival in fortunes.
Right into 6 left bus long, keep Bevy in the crest, slow 40, 6 right long, tightens 5 left, tightens keep in the crest.
And not even this overshoot on stage 8 could stop him retaking the lead.
Go right.
But if he could overcome overshoots, he couldn't overcome the hanging dust, which had become a constant problem. On the following stage, the problem was so bad the Norwegian had to stop, which handed his Finnish rival an advantage in the region of 30 seconds. Petter's brother Henning was also in trouble, but his problem was far more terminal.
150.
But Henning's retirement was one of relatively few for this event, which made for some fascinating battles throughout the field. With Danny Sordo suffering mechanical problems on day 1, Terry Pons was left on his own in Kronos Citroen's bid to catch Ford in the Manufacturers' Championship, and he was fighting it out with Manfred Stoll for 3rd place. There was little to separate them, and after stage 14 on the second day, they were dead level. But Stoll has more experience in Australia, and with Pons needing to protect his 4th place from Grönholm, who was moving back up the leaderboard, Stoll gradually took the upper hand in this contest to take his 2nd consecutive 3rd place. Up ahead, Petter Solberg was on course to deliver his first podium since Argentina, the most positive sign yet that Subaru were beginning to get to the bottom of their technical issues.
40. Okay.
But the season was just getting better and better for Mikko Hirvonen, who was finally about to deliver his first WRC win.
Mikko, listen to this. 2006 Rally Australia winner.
Sounds really, really good, and it's been a fantastic weekend. Just having this fight with Petter and doing the same speed as him, so fantastic. Can't really believe it.
There's the result, and with Marcus Grönholm only finishing 5th, the celebrations could start in the Citroën camp. Sebastian Loeb, the World Drivers' Champion for a 3rd time, even though he was sitting at home in Geneva, although he was able to join in the festivities via an internet link. And there it is, with a 21-point lead and just 2 events left, Loeb could not be caught by Grönholm. Hirvonen's win helped Ford to move further ahead of Kronos Citroen in the Manufacturers' Championship, their lead now 16 points.
Rally New Zealand had moved to new headquarters in Hamilton for 2006, with a number of stages that would be new to these drivers, and that was one of the reasons that newly crowned World Drivers' Champion Sebastian Loeb was in attendance for the recce.
Congratulations, Sebastian, 2006 World Rally Champion. You must be very pleased to have done it for a third time.
Yes, sure. It was a nice feeling to be champion during Australia, because it was a big pressure. Since I broke my arm, I couldn't do anything against Marcus, and he was closing the gap, so now that's done.
So Loeb was drivers' champion, but without him it was going to be a big ask for his Kronos Citroën team to win the manufacturers' championship. Ford needed to score just 3 points more than their rivals to secure what would be their first title since 1979, the days of the mighty Escort. And the Ford duo of Gronholm and Hirvonen were quickest out of the blocks, rapidly opening an advantage of more than 30 seconds over the rest of the field. Mikko Hirvonen may have been on a high after his win in Australia, but he would have to adjust to being behind his senior teammate Marcus Gronholm in New Zealand. Gronholm had won in New Zealand on 3 previous occasions and was looking to make this his 6th win of the season. But the Citroëns of Dani Sordo and Chevy Pons were doing everything in their power to keep the hopes of their team alive. Both established themselves in the top 5, but still it looked like they would need to rely on the retirement of one of the Fords to maintain an interest in the manufacturers' standings. And this pairing had more immediate concerns as they were fighting it out with Manfred Stoll over 3rd position. Sordo had taken 3rd place away from the Austrian at the end of day 1 and increased his advantage when he went for a soft compound tyre in the damp conditions of the 2nd morning. For once, things seemed to be going the right way for the Spaniard on the gravel. Stoll, who had gone for a hard compound tyre, also lost time to Pons, but he learned from his mistakes, and in the afternoon, with his setup spot on, he beat both Citroëns on the 2 main tests to regain 3rd position. After promising signs in Australia, Subaru were again struggling to keep pace with the leaders. Peter Solberg had complained of having no grip on the opening day and would get no higher than 6th. While Chris Atkinson would not return after colliding with a rock and wrecking his suspension on stage 9.
Okay, stand by a moment.
For the 2nd event in a row, it would be Henning Solberg who would take the prize for the biggest off when he rolled on day 2. The Norwegian would recover to finish 12th, which was 1 place behind Valentino Rossi. The multiple MotoGP champion was sampling the WRC for only the 2nd time. He started cautiously and had some difficulty with the conditions. But he showed a steady progression in his times and was really enjoying these stages. Is a permanent switch to the WRC a possibility for one of the biggest names in motorsport? In the carve-up for the major positions, come the last day, Manfred Stoll was drawing on his greater New Zealand experience to consolidate himself in 3rd position. Meanwhile, Chevy Pons put in some great times, including being fastest on the last 2 stages to take Danny Sordo for 4th position. Creditable performances by the Citroën duo, but they would not be good enough to prevent the Ford 1-2. Mikko Hirvonen was 2nd, his 6th consecutive podium. While Marcus Gronholm was registering his 4th win in New Zealand and his 24th WRC victory, which put him level with Tommy Mäkinen as the Finn with the most career wins.
Slow, 50. Long left, slow, into the finish. Up.
There's confirmation of the result, but the most important statistic was that after 27 years, Ford were manufacturers' champions again. And after a lifetime with Ford as a driver and now team principal, this was a dream come true for Malcolm Wilson.
I've got to be honest, I'm speechless. I think it's a full credit to all the team. They've done it's taken us 10 years since we took on the Ford contract to get to this position. But really, at the end of the day, it's all about people, and what the people have done back at M Sport up in Cumbria, I think, is it's fantastic. And we've been bridesmaid on many occasions, but to actually do it now is just a great feeling.
And there are the standings. Ford take an unbeatable 25-point lead into the final event. In the Drivers' Championship, Mikko Hirvonen is now confirmed in 3rd. The only issue left to decide now is who finishes 4th.
With Wales Rally GB back in its traditional end-of-season slot, the crews were faced with the worst of the British weather. Overnight rain ensured that the stages were especially slippery on the morning of day 1. That didn't seem to bother Marcus Gronholm, who won this event in 2001. He led from the very first stage. And his teammate Mikko Hirvonen, as in New Zealand, was 2nd. Although Hirvonen's Focus did receive some damage when he slid wide and hit a rock on stage 1. After the first loop of stages, Gronholm and Hirvonen look set to try and repeat New Zealand's 1-2 for Ford. But at service there was bad news for Mikko. He was forced to retire. Though the damage to his Focus he'd received from that rock looked repairable, there was a critical problem under that crumpled metal. The roll cage had been damaged, and the safety implications meant the car could not continue.
It's really a shame. I would have loved to finish the rally, and even though what happened in the first stage, I really enjoyed it. So all the 3 stages. So a shame that it ended like this. We would have a good, maybe want to finish in the rally and end the season like that, but didn't happen.
The conditions meant that staying on the road was a victory in itself, and many failed to achieve this. Henning Solberg has had a lively time in the last few events, and Wales was no different, although he recovered from this off to finish 11th. But Andreas Eigner would not return from this role.
Wird 4 plus kurz, slip innen, in leicht links, zip.
With Hirvonen out, Petter Solberg inherited 2nd place and spent the next day and a half jostling for position with Manfred Stoll. In a ding-dong battle for preeminence, nerves eventually told, with Solberg hitting a post on stage 11.
1 right, tightens up long, opens, 100, no.
He broke the impetuous steering rack and dropped to 3rd. No wins in 2006 for the Norwegian. He'll be hoping for better fortunes in 2007. So Manfred Stoll took 2nd, a strong end to the season.